Now, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll that asked you, how would you rate or how many stars would you give the first season of The Bad Batch? After that, I'll then be reading and responding to a wide variety of the comments left on the poll, some of which will be more positive, others less so. Okay, so let's right away just get to the results, where we'll see that 10% of voters gave the first season of The Bad Batch 5 stars and thought it was amazing. 62% then gave it 4 stars and thought it was good. There was then 23% of voters who thought it was about average and gave it 3, which then left 3% of voters to give it 2 stars, and a final 2% that thought it was terrible and only gave it 1 star. And so after we do all the math here, that means the first season of The Bad Batch got an average score of 3.75 stars, which then means it scored quite a bit lower than something like the first season of The Mandalorian, which was also on Disney+, since that ended up with an average score of 4.5 stars. And yes, I know you might want to say that's not a really good or fair comparison, but I still think it's an interesting one to make since a lot of the comments said or implied that we should give the Bad Batch time to get better, and mind you, I do think it can and will get better in time. Not to say that it was bad in the first season, I enjoyed that one quite a bit. However, The Mandalorian, which is more or less an original story and wasn't, say, something akin to a continuation of a series that had come before, in this case, or the case of The Bad Batch, that being the Clone Wars, well, The Mandalorian seemed to have little problem coming out of the gates and impressing and putting together a very good first season according to these ratings. So honestly, I don't know why we exactly expect less from The Bad Batch, other than, I guess it's animation, which I'm not sure makes a huge difference when it comes to expectations, or that it should. But anyway, let's save more of that discussion for the comments, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, let me once again quickly say thank you to everyone who votes and comments on these polls, and of course to everyone who watches the videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Let me also give a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel over on Patreon as well. And now let's kick this off with the top rated comment from the poll, which this time came to us from PBH, who said, "My main problem is Season 1 had really good ideas that didn't follow all the way through. Case in point, the episode where the Bad Batch were sent to bust out a pro-separatist senator. This was a great opportunity for the clones to have a real dialogue with a former enemy about what the separatist movement was all about and how, long before the Empire, the Republic, who was based in the core worlds, were subverting their sovereignty. I can imagine the Bad Batch settling down afterwards, pondering whether the side they fought for was truly worth it in the end. Instead, we just got Omega on the side playing Sabacc and a low-speed walker chase in the city." And yeah, I agree entirely about the episode you bring up. There was a great chance for the Bad Batch to start to question what was the point of the war? What exactly were they even fighting for all that time? Especially now that they get to see the end result is the Empire, and that former separatist worlds are being basically subjugated. And I'm not necessarily saying they should have put all the pieces in place right there and then and saw the big picture, but again, they should have started to question their role in the whole thing, to start to realize that, gosh, we helped the Empire win, and it seems like it may have been Palpatine's plan all along to seize power in the end, which should then weigh heavily on them and their decisions about what they should do next. Instead, not only is part of the episode, I don't necessarily want to say wasted on Omega, but the real problem is it only had a 20-minute window to tell this whole story in, start to finish, to present the problem and then to, of course, resolve it. And that just left no time to have any moments where, again, the Bad Batch step back and ask, how did this happen, and did we contribute to the rise of the Empire? And maybe the Separatists weren't so bad after all. Maybe they begin to realize there was a very good reason why they wanted to leave the Republic. Alright, let's now move on to this comment from Abro622, who said, "If each episode were an hour long and cut the season in half, then I would believe the outcome would have been much better. Still a good show with potential." Also, this comment from Alex Supertramp, who said, 7 of 10 for me so far. Too many side quests, unfortunately, and lots of wasted potential to go deeper at some parts. Longer episodes or multiple episode arcs could have really helped. Also, Tech and especially Echo are criminally underdeveloped so far. I still enjoyed it as it offered some really great episodes with overall awesome scores and visuals. Then we also got this one from J Danger Boy, who said, "It was a solid 7 out of 10, but my biggest issue was I felt the length of the episodes was holding it back. More time could give us more character development. Echo's personalities in this season, more Empire, Crosshair, and possible cameos, and possible new ideas. I think The pilot did really well with mostly everyone because of its longer length. Next up, this one from Richard Sylvester, who said, "It is the perfect example of average. Had potential, but their choice of stretching it over 2 or more seasons has killed it. It's just all about the Disney long-term subscriptions, not about telling a good story." And I think the last comment here really starts to get to the heart of the matter, that the show was exactly what Disney needed or wanted it to be, something that filled 16 weeks, or essentially 3 to 4 months, and kept a lot of Star Wars fans subscribed to Disney Plus for that time. And it's no coincidence that there's only about a month between the end of The Bad Batch and the upcoming start of Star Wars Visions, just like Visions will probably end about a month before the Book of Boba Fett begins. And of course, the reason for all of this is Disney does not want you ever canceling your subscription to Disney Plus. As I've been saying all along, we will eventually get to the point, if we're not basically there now, where there will almost always be something Star Wars running, some type of show with maybe a couple weeks in between the start of one and the end of the other. I mean, just look at next year. We will be getting the Cassian Andor series, we'll be getting Obi-Wan, The Bad Batch Season 2 will be coming, and Mandalorian Season 3 later in the year is also a possibility. That should and can be stretched to fit, you guessed it, the whole year. And so The Bad Batch being 16 episodes that are all 20-some minutes long, save the first one, which was basically a double-length episode, instead of maybe just 10, 40-minute episodes, was probably what Disney wanted it to be, which is maybe why we got so many filler episodes, which we'll talk about now, starting with this comment from King V Reborn, who said, "Less filler episodes, have 4 episode arcs, and give Echo an episode to shine, and I'd give it 5 stars. Other than that, it was certainly a fine show, 4 stars for me." Then there's this one from Jack Grant, who said, 2 stars. "I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand the hype around this show. I mean, when the show hits, it really hits. But when the majority of the show is just filler, and the only good episodes have characters that come from other Star Wars media, it's just angering that people give this Sid episode 5 stars just because they loved Clone Wars. I just can't stand the show, and that it had so much promise after the ending of Clone Wars just makes me sad. Dave Filoni can do better." Up next, this one from Money Kenny, who said, "I'd give it 3 stars, 6 out of 10. I just don't really feel connected to any of the characters, as they are incredibly static. Tech is just the smart guy, Wrecker is the dumb guy, and Echo averages 2 lines an episode. Add on to that a lot of missions that neither push the plot forward nor develop the characters, a lack of actual goal for the heroes beyond staying alive, a lackluster finale, weird pacing, and the repetitive nature of Hunter refusing a mission only for Omega to convince him within 15 seconds. It had a lot of good aspects, but was littered in missed potential, making the show a little stale. Also, did a single named character die all season? It felt very tensionless compared to the Clone Wars, where people were just dying left and right." Then we also have this comment from Sam, who said, "I see a lot of people complaining about filler. Personally, I don't mind filler. I don't think shows have to be 100% overarching narrative as long as the filler episodes are fleshing out the characters, but for me the characters were the weakest part of the show. Even by the end I still found them to be quite generic and uninspired, and there was a lot of missed potential to provide depth and nuance rather than just Tech says big words, Wrecker likes explosions, repeat for 20 episodes. That's of course exaggerating, but I still think more could have been done to make the characters feel like, or less like caricatures, and more like real people." Okay, so let's delve a little bit into the topic of filler episodes, since it was a very popular one in the comments. And the first thing that I think has to be remembered is the main purpose of the show should be to entertain you. And if you were entertained, if you enjoyed the 20-some minutes watching it, then filler episode or not, that's all that really sort of matters. That said, most people do expect some pretty tight and swift-moving, overarching narratives these days. That's just become the thing in entertainment, thanks mainly to the rise of streaming services where that's become the norm, and shows like Game of Thrones that kind of spawned the desire for these big, complex, overarching narratives in the first place. A lot of people these days watch shows less for the individual episodes and more so for the overarching or overall progression of characters and the story. They really want to get into the bigger picture, if you will. Heck, a lot of people binge watch entire seasons at a time and probably don't really distinguish much between the actual or individual episodes when they do that, when they're watching all of them at once. And so when you kind of get forced to watch only one episode per week, as Disney Plus has been doing it, and then you literally have to wait till the next one on their timetable instead of yours, you can't just fire up the next one whenever you're ready, And then after this wait, it ends up being an episode that doesn't really move the story or progress the characters much at all. Well, that tends to stick out a lot more. It tends to feel like a wasted week or like a flawed episode, even if the episode itself wasn't all that bad. So I think the filler argument is really a matter of perspective, right? It's really a matter of what you want or expect from a show on the personal level. Are you more interested in getting 20-some minutes of just pure entertainment, or is it really just that overarching story that's more important to you and what you're really vested in? Which isn't to say they have to be mutually exclusive or anything like that, or that even when looked at as individual episodes, that there weren't some sort of duds in this first season of The Bad Batch. But it's really all about what you, again, personally want from the show. Alright, let's now move on and get to this comment from LTG Videos, who said, "It was a fun season, but nothing extraordinary. If it follows the trend of Filoni's other shows, I expect future seasons to show significant improvement." Then there's also this one from Michael Mazurchek, who said, "The astounding number of 4 of 5s and 5 of 5s of I enjoyed it, therefore 4 of 5 is precisely why Disney Star Wars will be what it is. I'd be shocked if Darth Kennedy ever leaves Lucasfilm for any reason other than this rumored organization restructuring. Hopefully by that time, she doesn't have control of the courts and the Senate." Then there's this comment from Star Wars Forever, who said, "I feel like I'm one of the only ones who genuinely loves the show." Okay, so I certainly don't think you're the only one who genuinely loves the show. I mean, I personally highly enjoyed the first season. I don't know that I'd say I loved it. And I sometimes think we view any form of criticism as an attack or a rejection of something, when oftentimes, it comes from a place of actual concern and or wanting to see something improve. I'm someone who, especially when I was younger, was a big fan of pro sports. That's just the family I grew up in. Everybody was a fan. And part of being a fan of a team is sitting around with other fans and talking about where improvements can be made and who's maybe not pulling their weight on the team, or criticizing the coaching, or criticizing the management, or even the ownership. And you're not doing it because you hate the team. You're doing it because you love the team and you always want to see them win. And so when I get picky in a review of an episode of, say, The Bad Batch or The Mandalorian or whatever it might be, and I'll sometimes hear it from people in the comments, or they'll say, "Why can't you just enjoy it?" Well, I'm not doing it for the sake of finding something to complain about, which is what they seem to think it is, or to be an ass or to ruin someone else's enjoyment of the episode. I'm doing it because I want Star Wars to be the absolute best it can be. I want them to win every single time they take the field, just like I always want to see my favorite sports team win every single time, though I do understand you aren't always going to win. However, I want Star Wars to be held to a high standard because I think the fans deserve that. I want to see them give it their best every time. I want Disney and Lucasfilm to earn my money and to give me a quality product, not to get complacent and to take me for granted and to think I'll be happy with anything that has the Star Wars logo on it. And it kind of drives me crazy when I hear people say no one hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans, or that real fans don't complain or are never negative, they just enjoy it for what it is. No, to me, sheep are expected to consume without thought or complaint of any kind. And I'm not trying to insult anyone. I understand the desire to love all things Star Wars. I have that desire as well. So I don't blame or get angry at people with that mindset, but you have to hold the people in charge of Star Wars accountable, or they will exploit your love for it and give you crap. It's that simple. Okay, so let's now get to a few final comments before wrapping this up. And my apologies, because there were tons and tons of really great comments that I wanted to get to, and I feel like we're only scratching the surface of the first season of The Bad Batch. I feel like a lot more can be talked about, but this would turn into a really, really long video. So let's get to those few final comments, starting with this one from Jake Navarro, who said, "A+ pilot episode. A handful of really great episodes with some filler ranging from decent to mediocre sprinkled in between. Overall, it was good, and I believe the show will get better as the seasons go on." Then we have this one from Jose Alvarado, who said, 3 of 5. I was pretty disappointed. There was a lot of missed potential, but still, there was some good episodes. Looking forward to season 2. Then next up we have this one from Colin Baker, who said, 4 stars. It was a decent season, but a lack of Crosshair throughout the season, combined with his beliefs being central to the final 2 episodes. Episode 13 was misplaced, should have been episode 11, then push 11 and 12 forwards. And several other small problems with filler episodes not adding much to the characters or the story, both the main Bad Batch story and the overarching Rise of the Empire story, hold it back from being 5 stars. Also, we have this one from Back to the Future fan 88 who said, honestly, I only really liked the first episode and the Ryloth episodes. The rest were just meh. We never really got to know any of the characters besides Hunter and Omega. The rest of the Bad Batch were just sidelined, especially Echo. He was sidelined so much that just talking seemed like character development. Then we had this one from Al Does a Good who said, average, mediocre. I don't see myself ever rewatching this series because I don't feel there's a reason to. Moving on, we have this one from Shade Black Wolf who said, it's unbalanced. The elements are good from slice of life to the two escalating stories of the team and the rising empire. This is the way, but they need to amp up the personal stakes in the lower action stories or use them to build relationships. I'm looking forward to giving next season a 5-star though. Then we move on to this one from Sean Wolf who said, I would give it a solid 4 stars. I am really enjoying the show and its dark turn compared to some of the other Star Wars animated shows. My only real complaints are the lack of character development with a couple of characters, and really not getting a satisfying ending with Crosshair and the rest of the Bad Batch. The storytelling overall is excellent, the character is very interesting, and the plot is something I am definitely glad to see us visiting. The sort of transition between clones and stormtroopers, in my opinion, was a story that needed to be told, and I very much look forward to Season 2. Also, we have this comment from Tiberzan101 who said, it was pretty good. I think it did a good job of setting up the family dynamic of the group, including Crosshair as the grumpy uncle. Then this one from Woodsy2575 who said, I don't dislike it, there are just some growing pains similar to Season 1 of the Clone Wars. I'd also like them to actually deal with Echo and his probable PTSD from being kidnapped and tortured for a year straight. And finally, this comment from Justin Time and Friends who said, I don't understand why some people on social media are hating on it so much. The first half of the show was fantastic, and the animation was flawless. My biggest praise is that it didn't feel like a kid's show like Rebels and early seasons of Clone Wars. Sure, Bad Batch may have faltered a bit later in the season with too much filler, but it's already been approved for Season 2, and I'm sure Filoni and Friends are well aware of the common gripes fans have with it. This is only the beginning. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Again, my apologies, lots of great comments. I'm just scratching the surface here. So let's move into the comments and have you tell me what you think about the Bad Batch or what you think about what I or anyone else in this video had to say about it. So leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.